It's the Friday Cocktail, presented by Anna Glowinski.
We are now talking about defiance, fascism, cats, all in the same mix of soup. Hello, Stewart. How are you doing?
Not bad, Anna. How are you?
I am just fascinated to hear what you've got to say and where your brain went to link these topics together and think, do you know what? We need to make a book about this.
Well, what's funny is that, of course, the book's called Lessons from Cats for Surviving Fascism, and it started off as a joke. Just shortly after Trump was elected president for the second time in the U.S., I live in Canada, and I thought to myself, they deserve to be made fun of for this. This is a good chance to make a jokey book. So I started writing the book out, and the more I wrote about it and the more the news progressed, I was like, this is turning into a bit of a field guide, a bit of a survival guide. And it became a bit more of a serious tone. But I mean, it's still a very light read, and it's silly and it's fun. But at the same time, the lessons, I think, are probably more accurate than I intended them to be.
I'd like to go into more of those lessons in a minute, but I'm just going to now ask you for one of the biggest lessons that really caught you, when you thought, actually, there's something in this.
I think the most poignant message is never lose your nap time, which I think is the second chapter. And it's so accurate to me because I think a lot of fascist regimes, a lot of bullies in general will try to exhaust you. I think that's been a tactic of the past 10 years, has been trying to sort of flood the zone and make you overwhelmed and make you feel like you always have to be on your guard. You always have to react. You always have to do something. And I think it's really important to take a note from cats who will look at you and just say, you know what? I'm going to lie down for an hour and I might come back and I might slash your face, but I'm going to wait for a bit.
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually. It's almost like an act of defiance, isn't it? Or an act of saying, do your worst, but I don't care.
Yeah, no, naps are resistance. Absolutely. The naps take control back of the situation. They're like, no, I'm not going to deal with you right now. I'll see you in a bit.
So who are you, Stewart? What's your background that you started, that you think about things in this sort of way that you put pen to paper?
Well, for the past 13 years, I've been a social media content creator. So I create comedic videos and sketches and that type of thing on the internet. And I've been lucky enough to start that later in life and turn it into an actual job, which is great. And then that kind of lent itself to, writing stuff, and I do podcast stuff and all that kind of thing. I'm just very fortunate to be able to wake up in the morning and just to sort of look around at the world and go, how can I make this hopefully slightly better for people?
And so when you say better, does that normally mean putting a comedic spin on it, like humorous?
Yeah, I think so. What's interesting is, when I started off creating content for social media, comedy videos, it was kind of silly, nonsense stuff, very dad stuff, very parent stuff, that type of thing, family stuff. And then as we moved into the pandemic, it was like, I think I might be able to use my platform for some messaging here. We have had a fantastic public health official in Canada named Dr. Tam, and she was awesome. She was great, but she wasn't very funny. And I thought, man, people are going to tune out. They're not going to listen to her messaging. Maybe I can do the same kind of messaging, except I could probably get away with saying way more things and swearing more than she could. So that was kind of the impetus for that. And then I sort of eased into doing looking around the world and the news and the fact that people were getting overwhelmed and decided to, maybe if I can, chew those news stories up a little bit and spit them back out in a comedic way or a slightly less horrific way, that might be not a bad thing.
And how do you fact check? And do you ever feel a pressure to be like, I'm actually touching on some very serious topics here.
Oh, yeah.
I've got to get this right.
Yeah, no, I think that's the thing about, I feel responsible when I'm trying to create something comedic or something satirical, is that I need to be correct on what I'm making fun of. If I'm not correct on what I'm making fun of, then it's just a waste of everyone's time. What's the point of it? It doesn't matter. It's manufactured. I really feel that, and I felt that a long time, actually. I remember about 10 years ago creating a video and then being pulled up on some facts. I was like, oh, God, I didn't know that. I guess I should probably take this a bit more serious than I was. And so, it's pretty important to me to make sure when you're making fun of something, you're actually making fun of something.
Okay. I got you. I got what you're saying there. So back onto your book then. You mentioned unpredictability and how authoritarian systems are not huge fans of it. Why does that come up in your book, and what's your point here?
Well, the first chapter is Stay Nimble and Unpredictable, and it's about how the cats can have some people call them the zoomies, where cats will just go kind of crazy out of nowhere, seemingly out of nowhere, and will just look at you and then take off and run around the house or jump on the curtains or jump on top of the fridge and that type of thing. And it gives them a bit of an advantage because you don't know when they're going to do that or where they're going to go when they do that. And I think that's probably a good point to make for people who are resisting fascism, is to stay as nimble as possible, to stay unpredictable. If you just sort of do things that are expected, then you can be easily thwarted. You can be easily diluted. So it's better to have a little bit of weirdness. I had one of the things in the book I write about is, like going to a rally, for example, a protest rally, but go there dressed as a lobster. And I had sent a book to Jane Weedland, who is from the band The Go-Go's. And I saw that she went to an LA protest dressed as a lobster. And I was like, it's working. My book's working.
Wow. Because I was going to talk about, the impact of this sort of thing, not just as humour, on actual behaviours. So you've maybe leapfrogged us into that topic, but let's go there. Have you seen, has this book led to, more serious conversations about, what people can actually do, how people can feel empowered, what behaviours, actions human people can take in the face of political pressure?
Yeah, I think that, again, it's kind of part of that idea that there's a flooding the zone. There's like, we feel like we're being buried in news stories. The news cycle is nonstop and not always happy, usually not happy these days. And I think the book's been good for letting people process what's happening in a seemingly silly and fluffy way. And that's not a bad thing, because I think that I'd rather that than having people just tune out. I think it's bad. You want to stay informed, but not incapacitated. And I think hopefully the book is sort of helping people with that. It's been compared to, the publisher compares it to Timothy Snyder's On Tyranny, except with cats. I would say it's like Animal Farm, except way funnier, more jokes and more cats. So it's a good, easy, soft wedge in for people to deal with some of this sort of horrible things that are happening in the world currently. And
I'd like to talk a bit more about how you say don't get, you're essentially saying don't get too comfortable, but also take more naps. You're actually talking to us. We're a Spanish-based radio station.
Yes,
so we've got the siesta here. It's a huge part of the Spanish culture. Where's the line between feeling empowered, taking decisive action, and just putting your head in the sand or having a nap?
I think, when you realize that what's happening to your neighbor might end up happening to you, is a good reason to stay informed. It's a good reason to be aware of what's happening in the world and to act accordingly. Make sure that you're not just aiding something horrible that you don't think affects you currently but will affect you eventually. I think that's one of the things about politics is people will often dismiss politics as like, well, I don't talk politics. I don't talk politics. I'm not a political person. It's like, well, everything's political after a point. We're not talking about tax policy. We're not talking about, budgets and that type of thing. That's the boring politics stuff. But when you get into human rights and the more serious stuff, then it's like we've kind of gone beyond politics, but everything's political. Everything doesn't matter until it's at your door and it's coming to your door.
Yeah, just like a cat coming to your door, and even cats are political. What about knocking things over? What does that symbolise in your book?
I think that, you want your disruption should be deliberate and not incredibly random. I think one of the things cats do really well when they're being little jerks is they can look and they can be up on a shelf and they can look at you in the eye, and they've got their paw behind something that they know is important to you, and they will just gently tap it until it comes right to the edge, and then look you in the eye again and knock it off the shelf. And I think it's about choosing what we're knocking off the shelves. It's not about going around just being, with wild abandon and wrecking stuff. That's not the point, because who wants that? But it is about saying, this thing here, it's important to you. Either I get fed or it goes on the floor. So that's not a bad thing.
Absolutely. Right. So let's wrap it up here. Who do you imagine reading your book? Who has been reading your book? What sort of response are you getting?
I mean, I think, obviously cat lovers like it. I think that it's been sold to 13 countries. So there's lots of fascism out there that people would like to survive. I remember saying back in March to my publisher in New York, at a marketing meeting, saying, "Oh gosh, the book doesn't come out until June. I'm worried that things are going to be better by then." And the publisher said, "No, they're not going to be better by then."
This is hoping that things wouldn't be better.
Well, part of me, personally, I'm thinking, I hope things get better, and I think that's the hope, that everything in the world gets better. And then from a business perspective, I was like, well, I hope they don't get that much better yet, that fast. But yeah, some sort of balance would be good.
Wait a few months. Well, exactly. The book is called Lessons from Cats for Surviving Fascism. Yes, that is a sentence. It is also a title of a book. You can find it on Amazon or the Talk Radio Europe bookshop. It's by Stewart Reynolds. That's Stewart with a W and also with an S, obviously. Stewart, thank you so much for taking your time to join us this afternoon and also for getting the book out there.
Well, thanks so much for having me. And I'm going to go back to minus 19 degrees Celsius now. So.
Oh, we've been complaining because we've had one of the wettest winters ever, and it's 13 degrees.
You have to shovel all that rain.
I know. I'm sorry. All right, then. Bye-bye.
Thanks so much, Anna.